Welcome, everybody. We are here with Misty Collier, who is running for Amarillo mayor in the upcoming May election. So, Misty, first of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's just jump right into it. Your background. Tell people. Let's let the people get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background.
When I was 13, I used to do a praise and worship team when I was for my youth group. And when I was 14, I actually led a praise and worship group. And then I got my first job when I was 15. And basically with every job I've ever had, I moved from the bottom up. And then corporate figured out with different jobs that I was good at fixing, companies that maybe weren't doing so well because I could help them with their revenue and stuff. So I've been a manager for a long time with different companies. And then they've moved me into other companies and had me fix, some of their stores and stuff. So I've done a lot of that kind of stuff.
Okay, perfect. Now, as far as your decision to run for mayor, when did you decide to do that, and what drew your heart to run?
So I had ran a couple years ago, and a couple years ago I actually didn't know a whole lot about politics, but for the past 2 years I've been trying to fight for the citizens' rights and going to the city council meetings and trying to help and bring people in and being an advocate for the people. And then basically it was just, there was a lot of things this current council were doing that I don't necessarily agree with. So I wanted to go ahead and put my name in there for the race. And I am the candidate that's not backed by big money. So one thing people don't know about me is I've actually refused money because I don't want anyone to dictate what I'm doing. I want to serve the people wholeheartedly all the way. If they want something, I want their voices to be heard. I don't want some bureaucrat somewhere trying to dictate how I make my decisions.
Okay. Now, you made mention of some of the decisions that the current council that you don't agree with. You kind of want to expand on that and talk about those and how you would go about fixing those issues.
That's a big question. Let's take the library. Let's be particular, okay?
Okay.
This is just one topic that I have an issue with. So what I actually asked the library is that if they could take any sexually explicit material, whether it be for children or for adults, and move it into a separate room marked 18 and above, so that a child couldn't just go into the library and pick it up off the shelf. And then I asked them for transparency, because as I started communicating with the library director, she was relating to me that they go through the books and they put it for whatever child as they see fit. So I asked for transparency so that they would tell us, well, who's making those decisions? Because we as citizens, we pay for the library, we pay for the books, and we pay for their salaries. So they should let us know, who's making these decisions, who's not. That way, they can be held accountable if they're not doing their job. And our children are the most important thing to us. And we need to make sure that their minds are, kept safe. So that was one of my biggest issues. When I brought it to the council, they basically pushed back on me to just deal with the library. In the city charter, we the people are number one, and then the council, and the council is supposed to defend us to the public entities. So the public entity needs to answer to the council for not taking care of our children and making sure that they're safe. And my resolution, what I asked them to do, was nonpartisan. It wasn't for the left or for the right. It was for the children. And that's what we need to make sure that we're focusing on.
Okay. Now, well, actually, since we're on the subject of issues that are close to your heart, what are some of the more important issues to you, and how will you address them should you be elected?
I would like to create more communication with the people. You know, this current council has opened that up some. I think in the beginning it was more of a forced situation, but it needs to be further addressed. That means we, the people, need to have more of a say-so. They need to have more transparency as far as one idea I gave Rich Gagnon, he's the IT guy for Amarillo, was that maybe they should take a poll, say 3 days. So go ahead and post the agenda, take a poll for the citizens so that we could have some kind of tally number of who wants this, who doesn't want this. That way, if they can't make the city council meeting, at least there's some kind of poll to see where citizens sit. And he said that he would love to do that, you know, that would be a great idea. And so that's the type of person I am. I'm more of a problem solver, more so than a just follow what everyone says to do kind of person.
Okay. What are some other problems that you see maybe in the Amarillo area that need to be addressed?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious, you know, potholes in streets, and, you know, people want this building to look better, but, you know, I think that if we build our city from the inside out and focus on small businesses instead of bringing all these big businesses in and giving them free stuff, could you imagine if we gave all of our small businesses that have been here for 20 or 30 years help to progress and be more productive and actually do better? Then our city would grow from within instead of companies coming here, staying here for a few years and then leaving once their benefits are out, you know?
Okay. I just lost my question. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Since you've been out campaigning and speaking to voters and citizens, what kind of temperature are you getting from them? What are they most concerned about with this current election?
It's kind of disheartening because I've noticed a lot of people, and it could be because, you know, we have become a society that cares more about ourselves. And so we don't hear what other people are saying. So it's disheartening whenever you're trying to work for them and do the right thing, or even communicate with them on social media, and they just absolutely refuse to hear what you say because they would rather talk bad about you when they've never even met you or had a conversation with you, you know? So that's one thing I would encourage everyone to do just as a citizen. Maybe step back, listen first before you give your opinion, you know? And try to be kind to people because, you know, we all need a little bit of kindness in our life.
Okay. Okay. Now you're a longtime resident of Amarillo.
My whole life.
Okay. Same. Longtime resident of Amarillo. You talked about your unique experiences, you know, as management and really kind of working your way up from the bottom. Talk about how that insight and your growing up here, how that gives you a unique placement, unique insight into this campaign as you run for mayor.
I would say that would allow me to be very successful with all the small businesses, you know. Plus, I feel like there's a very large part of the community that, because I've worked with different types of people, you know, that I feel like I could represent everyone across the board. Plus, I have never been overly wealthy, you know. So I feel like I represent the poor community more than I do the wealthy. But that doesn't mean that I don't feel like we can work with both. I just feel like our poor community is overlooked. So I feel like I would be the better candidate as far as to work with them.
Okay. Now you may have touched on this a little bit earlier, But just to reiterate, what's your vision for the city of Amarillo?
For us to be a city on the hill, to shine. So much so that all the other cities in the United States are like, what are you doing?
Okay. Now, if for prospective voters or undecided voters out there that may see this, and they may say, why should I vote for Misty Collier? Why should they vote for you?
They should vote for me because I'm not bought and paid for, and I want their voices to be heard. The people matter, and they should be heard. It's their tax money, and they should have a say-so in how it's spent,
Okay. What is something that most people don't know about you that you'd like for them to know?
I like to sing.
Okay. What's your favorite song to sing?
I like doing like Christian, gospel stuff like that.
Okay. So as far as this campaign currently, because you said you ran a few years ago, what's been the biggest challenge for you running in this one?
The fact that I know a lot more, people have addressed with me that maybe I'm more negative now than I used to be because I was very happy-go-lucky back then, but I was kind of naive. So I'm very aware of what is going on, and I want to make changes to benefit all of our community, not just part of our community.
Okay. And I know earlier you spoke about transparency, and you like to see more transparency from City Hall. What are some ways that, should you be elected, what are some ways that you would make City Hall more transparent?
So, in particular, that idea that I had given Rich Gagnon, that would, I think, help out a lot. They've talked about doing more groups outside of the City Hall with different organizations and stuff to try to get people involved. Basically letting people know that their voice is heard, that they matter, and bringing them in instead of making them feel rejected. I think that's a big part of it. And I plan on working on that. Whether I'm mayor or not, I'm going to be working on that.
Okay. And of course, the economy's at the forefront of a lot of issues right now, both locally and nationally. In your position, should you get elected, what ways would you try to improve Amarillo's local economy?
Well, for one thing, we don't want to put ourselves in debt, So we need to work with the budget that we have, which that is one thing I would commend the current council on doing, is they have been very diligent about that. And I personally would continue that process, but the books need to be opened up so we make sure that there's not any frivolous spending or that anything's not being spent in a fraudulent way, and hold people accountable. If you're getting these grants and you're supposed to be doing this job, then are you doing your job? I feel like as a mayor, he's a city manager basically, so he needs to go in and make sure that these places are doing what they're supposed to be doing, especially when they're getting government funding.
Okay. And water tends to be a big issue locally. What are your views on the current water issue, and what are some ways that you feel like they can be improved?
So it's funny that you asked me that. I work with a nonprofit. It's called carestexas.org. And we have old and modern technology. Actually, what they've done is they've taken old technology and added stuff to it in, different fields. One happens to be water and waste. And I actually had him come in and talk with our city manager last week and another city manager that's over the water. And then we're supposed to do further interviews with the waste later on, but that's already in process. So I'm hoping we can get something done there.
Okay. Now, win or lose, what kind of knowledge do you hope to gain from this experience in public service?
Really, I'm unlike any other candidate, So I've pushed the boundaries where no one else has pushed them. I've held people accountable that have never been held accountable for. I've tried to change the game, And I've tried to open up a door for people just like me to come in. And I think I've accomplished that, and I'm going to keep going forward with that.
Okay. What do you, as a lifelong resident of Amarillo, what do you like about Amarillo, and what do you see some of the benefits for Amarillo in the future?
I love Amarillo because it's family oriented and we care about each other. And I feel like as a community as a whole, we truly want what's best for everyone.
All right. And as far as your campaign, how can people connect with you?
They can contact me on Facebook. I have my phone number on there. You know, I have a campaign page. I don't actually ask people for money because I don't want that whole stigma of being bought and paid for. But I do ask people if they want to help with my campaign. I always say, you know, word of mouth is as good as gold. And if they want to share my stuff, you know, I would be honored. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Absolutely. And then one more question for you. Of course, you're running against incumbent Cole Stanley and Jason Herrick. How does your message or how does your vision differ from theirs?
Well, from listening to both of them, and I would like to say this about Jason, and I'm not trying to sound negative, but I feel like his message belongs to someone else. And I feel like Cole's message belongs to someone else. So the difference is my message doesn't belong to someone else. My message is about we the people, that we matter, and we should have the say-so when it comes to how we're being governed. And they need to allow us to have that voice.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Oh, okay. All right, Misty Collier. And thank you again for being
Thank
here
you.
with us.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Once again, Misty Collier, Amarillo mayoral candidate in the upcoming May election.